Ever since the tech demo for the PlayStation 3 was shown in 2005, it's fair to say a remake of Final Fantasy VII has been a dream of many. For lots of us, it was our first RPG. It's also still many people's favourite game over 2 decades later. Me, I've beaten the game 3 times and each time found many new things to love about it. I've made friends through my experiences with Final Fantasy VII, and it showed me just how different RPGs could be from each other. With a legacy like that, it's easy to see why Final Fantasy VII Remake is so anticipated, and why there's so much pressure to meet fan expectations. Fortunately, it just about makes it to first class. It feels like a fresh new experience that fans and newcomers will enjoy, and pushes the boundaries of what a remake actually is. This is only part 1 in what's set to be a series of games based on Final Fantasy VII. This installment is a reimagining of the first 5 hours of the original game, set solely in the sprawling metropolis of Midgar. Events largely follow the course of the original game, but there are entire chapters dedicated to new content. How you get to events, or how things play out, doesn't always follow the 1997 classic beat for beat either. Some of the expanded content is extremely good. Biggs, Wedge and Jessie all have much bigger roles to play throughout the game. Rather than just being bit parts, each of them has a backstory. They bring something to the plot, and they even get an entire chapter to shine without the other big players in Avalanche. It's not simply expanded scenes and characters, however. I called this a reimagining, and I stand by that because Remake slowly drip feeds some new story content throughout that comes to a head as you approach the end of the game. I can't say anything more than that, but it's bound to divide fans. At times it felt unnecessary, but others I felt nervous and strangely excited about what was happening. As well as story content, there are many new additions that I don't think work in the remake. There are multiple new characters either created for Remake or included from the compilation that felt shoehorned into the plot. Leslie, who is a bodyguard for Don Corneo in the game, is from the novel The Kids Are Alright, and here he has a one-note personality and seemingly exists to just push the plot along. Roach, a character brand new to the game and heavily marketed, simply appears as a challenge for Cloud a few times and nothing more. And while some chapters allow for meaningful character development or expand on story events in a good way, there's one chapter in particular which requires you to return to a previous dungeon just to go on a wild goose chase to retrieve an item and refight a boss. While some of the new content justifies its inclusion, this, along with some other cutscenes and sections, felt like unnecessary padding to stretch out the game's length. Fortunately, already established characters are fleshed out considerably, and for the better. I'd go as far as saying this is the best characterization we've seen for the main cast. Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, and Red 13 all feel true to their original interpretation, but more realistic than ever. Cloud's snarky but aloof nature is intact here, and I felt so warm every time Barrett talked about his daughter Marlene. They're also funny as well, just like in the original. As for voice acting, Britt Baron as Tifa is the star here, and she makes the character sound mature and conflicted while being kind and warm more than any previous portrayal has before. Outside of the main cast and a few major characters though, I found most of the voice acting to be hit or miss, not helped by awkward lip syncing or exaggerated performances and voice direction. Regardless, this is the most alive these characters have ever felt, and exactly how I imagined them as a kid. Getting to Midgar itself, the Marco capital of the world, has never looked or felt so real. Remake's landscapes are utterly stunning to look at. Every time I reached a new location, I spent ages slowly walking around and taking in the sights. I'd always make a point of looking up at the underplates at night, and each time my breath was taken away. Even walking through the scrap heaps of Sectors 5 and 6 is wondrous. Never has trash looked so good. The game runs smoothly as well, with no slowdown and a consistent frame rate, even in combat. Characters look amazing in motion, and attacks from spells to summons all look impressive. The seamless transitions between cutscenes and gameplay never gets old either. It's a shame then that this consistency isn't applied to NPC character models, which often look far too shiny and are animated awkwardly. All the main characters look so vibrant, with so much detail in their hair, their clothes and skin, so standing next to an NPC definitely makes those models stand out in a bad way. And while large set pieces look incredible from a distance, there are several blurry textures throughout, particularly on doors, signs, and scrap heaps. These will hopefully be fixed by a patch, but it's pretty distracting to see a big looming pile of trash from a distance, only to walk up to it and realise that most of it's flat. As the game is split into chapters, there are restrictions on how much you can explore. Once you've moved on to a new chapter, you often cannot go back to the previous area. The game gently nudges you along in one direction, just like in the original, so this didn't bother me much. There are some chapters, however, which encourage you to explore by taking on side quests. These are pretty typical of modern day RPGs, involving rescuing cats, monster extermination, and finding ingredients for medicine, so they don't really offer anything exciting. The Battle Arena and VR Simulator, which pits you against summons to gain a new summon materia, at least offer you something to test your skills against. Most rewards, however, didn't make doing these worth it in my opinion. For me, the most exciting and sometimes scary thing about a remake is the new music. Nobuo Uematsu's score to the original is iconic. Remake soundtrack is headed up by Masashi Hamauzu and Mitsuto Suzuki, but there's no need to be worried about the quality here as it's wonderful, full of arrangements of the original soundtrack and new compositions inspired by music from the compilation. There are also multiple tracks that were never originally heard in the Midgar portion of the game, but are all instantly recognisable. Many tracks get multiple arrangements, and if I'm being really picky, there are some that have a few too many. Still, I can't deny the quality is consistently excellent. As soon as the soundtrack comes out, the new arrangements of Under the Rotting Pizza are going on repeat for the foreseeable future. Customization is more than just materia now too. Characters get multiple weapons throughout Remake, and these can all be upgraded. Whether a weapon is equipped or not, it gains experience and, as it increases in levels, it gains skill points which can be used to increase the weapon's stats or provide new supportive skills, such as one which heals your character when they defeat an enemy. Every single weapon has a specialty, whether it provides big defensive boosts or greater magic attack, and each comes with a new ability which, once mastered, can be used even after changing weapons. No weapon ever outlives its usefulness, and I really enjoyed playing around and adapting my weapons to suit my playstyle. Something else I truly adored throughout the game was the combat, which just kept getting better the further into the game I got. Attacking with standard attacks gradually builds up an enemy's pressure gauge and increases your ATB charges. Once the enemy's gauge is full, they will stagger, which makes them more susceptible to damage. ATB charges can be used to cast magic, use abilities, or use items. My favourite thing is just how different everyone feels to play as. While Cloud is your heavy physical damage dealer, whose skills can deal a large amount of pressure in one go, Tifa is much quicker and chips away at an enemy's pressure gauge with her fast attacks. And each character has their own specific skills too. Tifa can use Unbridled Strength to change her special attack from a mighty uppercut to an earth-shattering punch, and Barrett can either reserve his overcharge skill to ensure his abilities only use one ATB charge rather than two, or use it to deal heavy damage in one go. Figuring out how to take down enemies is what makes fighting so joyous, and this is no more apparent than in the game's bosses. A lot of the time, putting your enemy under pressure by simply attacking them will not work, so you have to learn their attack patterns, know when to guard and dodge, or when to exploit their weaknesses and use up your ATB charges. Every single boss is memorable in the best possible way, and most test your skills and understanding of the combat to the limit. They can't be approached with the same tactics either. Each fight feels like a big spectacle, and while some might outstay their welcome a little, they all feel like a true obstacle for you to overcome and present a fair challenge. Final Fantasy VII Remake does so much right. Being more than just a by-the-numbers remake of the opening 5 hours of the original, the game feels like a brand new experience that tugs on the heartstrings of fans. It's not perfect, of course. The lack of visual polish is jarring, and there's a lot of padding in some chapters that struggles to justify its existence, in my opinion. There's also stuff that's bound to upset some people, and it certainly never plays it safe, but I found the game to be an utter joy to play and look at, irrespective of these flaws. One thing I can confidently say at the end of it all is, however you feel about Remake, it's an interesting and exciting time to be a Final Fantasy VII fan. So, now that the game is out, have you had a chance to dive into the new version of Midgar yet? Does Final Fantasy VII Remake meet or exceed your expectations? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoy what we do, leave us a like and be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for even more RPG news and reviews, be sure to visit us at rpgfan.com for all that and more.